Welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So we are, of course, on Parshat Noach, a parsha that deals with Noah and the flood. We're actually in the very beginning, the onset of the flood, with its destruction, etc. And we're learning a lot of sort of interesting, maybe side points that come out of this material. And I think it's so fascinating, the degree to which it talks in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, to sift it and sift it and sift it again. And in a way, that's what we're doing. We're sifting these verses and discovering jewels in them, that take a great deal of meditation, and we're benefiting from all the meditation that has been done, and of course, especially from the encyclopedic knowledge of Rabbi Baruch Halevi Epstein, the author of the Torah Temimah, which is the work that we're studying right now. So let's take a look at this. This is chapter 7, and we're looking at verse 23. Vayimach, right? I believe is how we yeah. Vayimach et kol hayakum. All existence was wiped out, right? And it mentions it twice. Let's take a look at this. And they pick on that. So, Vayimach et kol hayakum asher al pnei hadamah, which is on the surface of the earth. Me adam
Mhm.
ad behema, from human beings to cattle ad remes, excuse me, to the creeping things, ad ofa shamayim, to the birds of the heaven. And here is the second time it works. Vayimachu. Right? So Vayimach, they were wiped out. They were wiped out. Right? So existence is singular. That's why it's singular here. Vayimachu is referring to all these various species that are out there. Min, and the last little part is min haaretz, right? And from the earth, right? From the land. So they're picking that up. They're sensitive to these sorts of little things, right? And here's it: Vayimach, Vayimachu, right? Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis taught, Dor HaMabul, the generation of the Mabul, and I know it's tempting to call it the flood, but the truth is I think Mabul has more to do with devastation, right? And I believe there can be a Mabul Aish. I could be wrong, but it seems to me that Mabul isn't limited to just water. So to be a flood, it would be Mabul Mayim.
Mhm.
So this generation, Ein lo chelek lo'olam haba, has no portion in the world to come. And this is putting down a very basic principle, which tends to be neglected and overlooked and, in fact, denied to some extent by modern scholars, modern religious leaders, etc. But it's absolutely explicit in all over the rabbinic literature. And at this point, I truly believe the Bible also suggested it, even though it isn't so explicit. And that's why, to a great extent, monolith scholarship tends to deny it and not look at it. And of course, there are external reasons as to why people don't want to believe in anything beyond this lifetime. And there are, of course, tremendous implications if you believe that this is the only life we have, that we come, we go, born, we die, and that's the end of it. That's end of story. If that's what you believe, you live life in a very different kind of way than if you believe what the rabbis tried to teach us, which is this brief, tiny little existence in this particular world of ours is merely a preparation. It's a way in which to prepare ourselves something that is going to happen after death, and that we need to understand it. And of course, if you do, you're going to live your life in a very different kind of way. And to recognize that one of the, of course, great conundrums is, why do the wicked suffer? Why do the wicked prosper? And why do the righteous suffer? Please excuse me. You may want to mute if you're not muted, because I'm getting a lot of sounds as well. So if you don't mind, just for the time being. So that that big question, right? Big religious question, the problem that the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer, that we see this happening in the world. Well, if you believe, first of all, that this life is extremely brief, that in and of itself it has little significance in a world that is messed absolutely massive, and discovering just how great and how insignificant the time that we spend here, the amount of influence that we have on any kind of universal level, then you're going to want to seek significance in another kind of way. And Judaism basically, I believe, lays down the idea of a transcendent level of existence, that is the existence of God, and that makes all this possible, that this entire existence that we live in is actually part of something that is of ultimate divine origin, and that this God seeks us and gives us a Torah to give us a way of finding significance in devoting our lives to service of the divine. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. If you believe that, if you take those words very, very seriously, then it has a tremendous influence on the kind of life you're going to live. So the rabbis, without any question, believe in a world to come. They certainly lived in a time when, during the Roman occupation and the destruction of the temple, etc., etc. I also believe that the Bible, while it doesn't say it very explicitly, all those laws that involve the temple or the sanctuary, and all those laws that involve ritual purity have to do with immortality. In other words, to make sure that we don't defile ourselves and and besmirch our souls and our bodies, and that we can pass from this world into the next world, that there will be accountability, that ultimately every single person is going to be accountable, if you believe that we have one divine creator that demands justice, and that we are going to have that, and not to be overly concerned when one sees the righteous prosper, because the prosperity is very, very brief. It's not worth much in terms of as much power as one can.
You mean when the righteous prosper? You mean when the wicked prosper?
Yes, when the wicked prosper. That's right. I'm sorry. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for it. Yeah, yeah. We shouldn't be over concerned when the wicked prosper. Doesn't count for very much, really. Unfortunately, they can do a lot of damage, sadly. But again, the belief is that just as prosperity in this world is of limited value, that's to say, now notice I said limited value. I didn't say no value, just limited. It gives one an opportunity to do a tremendous amount of good, right? It also unfortunately gives one the opportunity to do a tremendous amount of evil and hurt a lot of people. But the point is, ultimately, it doesn't count for very much. And on the other hand, to whatever extent one tries to devote one's resources to bringing goodness into this world, and essentially one of the ways, of course, is through the mitzvot, through the commandments, this all gets ultimately paid back in the next world. So even if your life is taken, because everyone's life will ultimately be taken, um, it's all going to pay out properly. We don't have to worry. Now, here we have an explicit statement about this, right? We have the statement in Sanhedrin, Tractate Sanhedrin, that says the generation of the flood does not have a portion in the world to come. In other words, they basically face extinction. Why? Shneimar, as it states, Vayimach et kol hayakum. So it says all of existence was, or life that was there on the surface of the earth, right? It all was wiped out, and then that's one place. Vayimachu min haaretz. Again, you have this parallel statement. They were exterminated. They were wiped out from the earth. Why twice? Vayimach et kol hayakum, the fact that all of existence was wiped out, ba'olam hazeh. Here, they died in the flood. Vayimachu min haaretz, and they were wiped out from the land, ba'olam haba, in the world to come. So the reason for the duplication is the indication that they were totally exterminated. Their souls were no longer in existence. Okay. Let's take a look at this. He's got I believe, some really interesting things to say about this. And of course, one thing you may be wondering about is, since it says they were wiped out from the land, right? in the second one, well, the land would seem to refer to this world, right? The land we live on. So why is it saying that? He's going to have, Torah Temimah is going to have some interesting statements about that. So, Tam ha'adavar. So the reason for this whole argument, right? Yesh lomar, one could say, pashut, it's simply mishum dechtiv ki hishchit kol basar et dalko al haaretz. That the reason for their being exterminated is because all flesh perverted its way, corrupted its way on the land. Velo ela asher b'mayim. Oops, am I doing the right one here? Forgive me. I may be doing the wrong one. Let's make sure. No, this is the number 20. So I think I don't know. Maybe we did not do this. Well, I'm gonna do this today, and I'll have to skip back to this next time. I'll try and remember to do that. So let's take a look. Okay. Here we go. So I actually have to do kaf. We did not finish this up last time. Forgive me. Okay, well, we're doing this in real time, right? Okay. Pashut, it's clear. De medayek, that he is noticing, he's paying attention, special attention, kful lashon, the double language. Vayimach et kol hayakum asher al pnei adama, just as I explained, right? That all the existence on the surface of the earth was wiped out, v'gomer, etc. Vayimachu min haaretz, and they were wiped out from the land. Dahainuhach, that this is exactly the point, right? That's what it's saying. That's the implication of that verse. V'yesh lehosif od, but one can say more. Didarish, that he is interpreting al derech asmachta, by means of, asmachta means sort of a suggestion. Asmachta as opposed to a direct proof. Asmachta literally means support. Right? In other words, there's support for this argument. Vayimachu min haaretz, that when it says they were wiped out from haaretz, from the land, shehu ta'ar le'olam haba, that in fact the word aretz is a description of the next world, of immortality. Right? Al derech hakatuv b'Tehillim, it is in the manner in which it's stated in Tehillim, in the book of Psalms. All right? Et halech lifnei Hashem, I shall walk before the Lord, be'artzot hachayim, in the land of the living. Now, artzot hachayim there refers then to the next world in the context of the psalm. I also want to point out that it is so interesting that this word itself, chayim, which, if you know your basic Hebrew grammar, is a plural, right? And the chayim, the ayim ending, usually implies a doubling. A naim means eyes, right? The two eyes. Oznaim, the two ears. Ofanayim, a bicycle, right? That chayim, two lives, that the word itself implies that there are two lives. There's a life in this world, and there's a life in the next world. V'chein darshu, and so they expound in Sanhedrin, in the tractate Sanhedrin, page 90a. Kol Yisrael, in fact, this chapter starts off with this. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelem lo'olam haba, that all of Israel do have a portion in the world to come. As it says, and this is the proof text, V'amcha kulam tzadikim. This is a verse, I believe, from Isaiah, right? Your nation are all righteous. Le'olam yirshu aretz. They will inherit the land forever. So there we are. We have the word aretz, and the word aretz actually implies the next world, not necessarily this world that we're in. I am happy to go on a little bit, going back to where we had to that previous comment. So that's this one, and we just did this. But we were here with the this one up here, where Rabbi Ami said, "Kol ha'ochel me'afara shel Bavel," that anyone who eats the earth of Babylonia, this is actually the soil of Babylonia, ki'ilu ochel mi basar avotav, It's as if he's actually a cannibal. He's eating from the flesh of his forefathers. And there is this comment. We actually looked at it the last time, but let's see here. Let me make sure. Yes, okay. I think that is where we are. Now I'm seeing Yud Zayin is actually right up here, but I think we did it. Yeah. Let's see. Want to make sure. We may have to go back further, whether we do. But anyway, let's do this. We'll do this one. Okay. I remember that we had read this. V'yesh omrim, and they say, ki ilu ochel shkatzim ramashim. I think it's remes, right? Yeah, remes, that's the word. It's as if he is eating unclean animals and reptiles, dichtiv, as it states, Vayimach et kol hayamkum, and all of existence was blotted out. So let me go back to the Yud Chet, although it seems that we did do Yud Chet. Maybe not. Okay, let me say, make sure. I'm sorry if it seems confusing, but okay, so let me do Yud Chet. Let me find the place here. Here we are. Mimete hamabul, that is from those who died in the flood. Here we go. This is when it says the flesh of his forefathers, right? In other words, eating from the people who perished in the flood. Usfarale, this is Rabbi Ami, right? He holds Command Amar, according to the one who says Bezavachim in the tractate Zavachim, page 130, bet, the second side, to Be'eretz Yisrael lo yarad mabul. Okay, now I remember that we did this. I do remember that we did this. I wasn't able to mark the place the last time we got together. So we did actually we did do this. I will double check, make sure, but I believe we did do that. So if that is the case, I am going to move on to the next one here and mark it so that we know next time that this is where we're going to start. And I apologize for any confusion here. But there we are. We should be ready to roll next time we meet on this particular subject. I'm going to stop the share. Any other comments? I know I rolled out a big one today, I think, in terms of this whole belief in the afterlife. Harlan, I see you're trying to unmute. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. In other words, if we obey the commandments of God and do his laws, we'll be okay for the next world.
I guess if we're putting it simply, yes. I mean, I think it's a little bit more complicated. I don't think it's a mechanical that we should see it simply as a sort of mechanical thing, right? Because it's possible sometimes to observe commandments and still not be a nice person. So I think that, the commandments are a foundation, but the idea of being a righteous person goes even beyond simply the commandments. All right. So
Right.
I would go this far, and I could be wrong, and here I am saying it for the record. I think the commandments are a foundation, but to see them as simply nothing more, I think is a mistake. And I do believe that there are ways in which a person acts as a compassionate, righteous human being who doesn't cheat their neighbor, right? Who essentially follows the rules of what is hateful to you, don't do to your neighbor. And there are times when people, in following the commandments or think they're following the commandments, are doing things that violate that rule, that violate the rule of what is hateful to you, don't do to your neighbor. When they use the commandments to judge other people in a way because they don't think they're as righteous as themselves, and they put them down. And I really put a lot of weight on the statement of Hillel, who said that the foundation of the Torah is what is hateful to you, don't do to your neighbor. The rest is commentary. All right. So
Yeah.
if you don't violate that rule, you're in a pretty good place.
Well, kindness is the word.
I believe so. I believe so. And that rule is the essential rule of kindness. Yes.
Mm.
So it's hard for me to believe, despite the fact that my own mental capacity is limited to the ultimate extreme, to believe that God is simply does not count kindness as the most important thing, and that a person who is a kind person has a very good chance of making it into the next world.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, and I think this might be a good place to stop the recording.